Hello and welcome. My name is Michelle Ruppert, and today I am presenting my capstone project, West Virginia School Consolidation, A Decade of Change. This topic is personal to me because 3 schools in my community have closed over the last 4 years, and additionally, during my senior year in high school, our senior class was sent to a new consolidated high school. As a data analytics student with a personal connection to this issue, I wanted to use data to tell the full story of how school consolidation affects West Virginia students and their communities. The goal was to answer questions about the number of schools closed or consolidated, the geographic locations of those closures within the state, and any measurable patterns or changes, such as population or poverty rates, in the area where the schools were closing. The first dashboard is an overview. The data for this project spans 2014 to 2025 and covers all 55 counties in West Virginia. At a glance, West Virginia began this period with 737 open schools and ended with 664. It's a net loss of 73. But the total number of closures tells a much bigger story. 112 schools closed, while only 36 new traditional schools opened to replace them. The closures map shows where the closures are concentrated, and they're not evenly distributed. Southern and central West Virginia counties carry a much heavier burden than the rest of the state when it comes to closures. And the average poverty rate for West Virginia is around 18%, and this is above the national poverty rate of 12%. The average graduation rate in West Virginia is at about 92%. And these numbers set the stage for what we're about to explore. The school closures dashboard shows where and when closures happened. Fayette County leads with 11 closures, the most of any. Brooke and Hampshire counties follow both with 9 each. The map lets you watch counties change color as they lose higher percentages of their schools over time. The more important story behind every closure is a child who's lost their neighborhood school. When schools consolidate, students often face significantly longer bus rides. And research by Howley and Shamblin found that rural students are far more likely than suburban students to have bus rides of 30 to 40 minutes or longer. And these students are also often placed on buses with others from multiple grade levels. More recent research shows that longer bus commutes are associated with students skipping breakfast, having lower grades, having poor physical fitness, fewer social activities, and even worse study habits. And all of these factors can lead to an increase in mental or behavioral issues for students. The line chart shows the statewide decline from 737 all the way down to 664 by 2024-25. That's a steady decline with no signs of reversing. It's also worth noting that West Virginia has been losing schools for over 25 years. And this data only captures the last decade of a much longer issue happening in the state. You can select a county on the tree map to view the open schools data and see the total number of closures in the county. When a child's neighborhood school closes, they lose their social network, their teachers, friends, and community anchors. Their research shows that social isolation at school harms adolescents' mental health and academic outcomes. The Rural Health Information Hub notes that in some rural communities, schools are the only mental health resource available to children, making school closures not just an educational loss, but the beginnings of a mental health crisis for the entire community. The population and enrollment dashboard shows that school closures do not happen in a vacuum. They follow the people. And this tab directly examines whether population decline is related to school closures. Guess what? It seems to be tied. Of West Virginia's 55 counties, 48 lost population between 2014 and 2024. The scatter plot shows a clear pattern. Counties with greater population loss tend to have more school closures. This was one of the clearest answers to one of the research questions. showing a relationship between population decline and school closures. As you select a county from the slicer, you can see the data update on the charts to show where the county ranks with the specific data point. Unfortunately, we only had 7 counties with measurable growth during this time period. The most alarming finding was the school-aged population. Between 2019 and 2024, West Virginia lost 10,699 school-aged children. Boone County lost 30% of its school-aged population in just 5 years. Fewer kids means fewer schools, and fewer schools means fewer reasons for young families to stay in West Virginia, which is creating a cycle that is very difficult to break. Our next dashboard is our poverty and socioeconomic impact. Poverty and school closures, as we learned from the last dashboard, are deeply connected in West Virginia. The state's average poverty rate of 18% is higher than the national average of 12%. For child poverty, it's even more stark. West Virginia averages around 24% compared to the national average of 16%. This dashboard shows the poverty rates by county. You can use the slicer to select a range to see where the counties fall. Even more alarming is that Calhoun County has a child poverty rate of 54%, more than 3 times the national average. 24 West Virginia counties sit above the state poverty average, and 50 of our 55 counties are above the national child poverty rate. Let that sink in. 50 out of 55 counties have children in West Virginia living in poverty every day. The scatter plot shows that counties with a higher poverty rate tend to have more school closures, which is a direct answer to a research question. Poverty and consolidation appear to feed each other. Poor communities lose schools, and losing schools makes communities poorer. It's a pattern that demands attention from our policymakers. Our next dashboard is about graduation rates. Despite the challenges that we're facing with our economy and our dwindling population, West Virginia's graduation rates have been improving, and they're rising from around 88% in 2015-16 to 94% in 24-25. However, there is a persistent and troubling gap. As you can see on the line graph, the low socioeconomic status students graduate on an average of 89%. That's 3 points below the overall average of 92. This gap appeared in the dataset every year, spanning all years of data. Overall, 23 counties fell below the state graduation average. The scatter plot shows the counties with the most school closures, and they tend to cluster at the lower end of the graduation rates, which is honestly what I expected when I started exploring the data set. This suggests consolidation may be taking a toll on student outcomes, particularly in communities where they were already struggling due to their economy and lack of resources. The scatter plot clearly shows a correlation and answers another question. When you combine longer bus rides, social isolation, higher poverty, and fewer economy resources, it's not surprising their graduation rates are suffering. Another factor for some students is they may be part of the family income, requiring the student to work before or after school, not allowing them much time for studying or school socialization. Our last tab is a county deep dive. This is where all of the data and research are going to come together. You can select any of West Virginia's 55 counties. Here we have Fayette selected. And you can see its complete story. The poverty rate, the graduation rate, population change, total closures, when the schools closed and when, how the school age population has changed, and how the county compares to the state average on every metric. I wanted to close by highlighting something that gives me hope. There are 12 counties in the data set that I'm calling resilience counties. Counties with an above average poverty rate that still manage to achieve above average graduation rates. Counties like Mingo, Webster, Calhoun, and Barber are beating the odds. West Virginia is losing schools and people are facing serious economic challenges. But this data also shows a state full of resilient communities that refuse to give up. It tells us that poverty does not have to be our destiny, and that we can learn from these communities how to face adversity and how to be resilient. The new question we need to ask our state policymakers is, what will you do to support our schools, support our communities before we lose more? I want to thank Generation West Virginia for allowing me this opportunity, and to my instructors, and for all of the support I've received for the last 6 months. The data, the visualizations, and the full data structure for this project will be available on my GitHub. Thank you.